I'm Amy, sex educator, sex and relationship coach, and co-owner of PurePleasureShop.com.
And I'm April, sex toy maven, VP of Hot Octopus, and I've dedicated my life to the business of sex. We're two people with a passion for educating and inspiring shame-free conversations about sex and relationships. Welcome to the Shameless Sex Revolution.
Want to learn more? Go to shamelesssex.com. And for 15% off of some of our favorite sex toys, use coupon code shamelesssex at purepleasureshop.com.
You are listening to a pleasure podcast. For more from our sex podcast collective, visit pleasurepodcasts.com.
Well, hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome to the Shameless Sex Podcast. This is your favorite podcast, all about snuggling, all about hugging,
loving,
all about pussy hugs, all about petting, all about banging it out, all about relationships and sex and all the things. And
that was nice.
That was real nice, right? I want to switch it up a little bit. This is a wonderful episode with a wonderful repeat guest, Dr. Tammy Nelson. And she's talking all about her new book, Open Monogamy. And I want to preface this, that this is for all folks, whether you're monogamous or not. She's talking about modern day monogamy and all the variations of how that can shape, flow, look. And there's a lot of really useful tools in there. And I just really appreciate her a lot.
Every time we've had her on the show, I have really large takeaways.
Yeah.
And it's not about me. I'm not really interested in open monogamy, but I learned some things and I think that it can apply to anyone.
Well, I didn't say this on the show, but she was making this comment about during the pits of the pandemic and how things changed and how monogamy changed for a lot of folks and how some people wanted to take on extra partners because of X, Y, and Z, various reasons. I was like, I actually experienced some of that during COVID in my relationship. Yeah. If you're listening, my partner that I love, where I was like, wow, my access to you is limited. And what would it be like if I just had like another boyfriend? But it's very complicated because for me, it's not just about sex. Like it'd be pretty easy for me to just find someone to have sex with. That's not that hard to do. But to find someone to like snuggle with, cuddle with, sleep next to here and there. But also you're not my primary partner. Anyways, I understood what she was saying. And just COVID aside, this stuff is always transforming, changing, as is sexuality. We're on this continuum of constant movement and shifting, and hence why we can have the same speaker come multiple times to talk about different topics, or we can talk about the same topic over and over again because there's constant new knowledge.
Well, that's when people ask us, aren't you going to run out of things to talk about? I'm like, no, honey.
Never.
No, sex is endless.
Yes. Yeah.
It's job security, I guess.
Totally. And we will never be bored.
No,
so hopefully you won't either. Okay. So we have a sex question, but before we do the sex question, I would like to give a shout out to something called Sex Geek Summer Camp. So if you've listened to a lot of our episodes, you may have listened to an episode from, was it 2019?
No, it was 2017. It was one of the first ones we did. We did in the Caribbean.
Wait, that was with Reed. I'm talking about when I was at Sex Geek Summer Camp. Yes. Oh, yes. Okay. So Reed Mihalko, yes. Episode 5, he did the casual sex.
Our sound was terrible.
Yeah, we were in like a weird room in the Caribbean where it was really hot and we locked, it was like our 5th episode ever. And we locked all of our friends out of the room where all the booze was.
They were mad.
They were real mad. So Reed Mihalko is an expert sex educator who has created something called Sex Geek Summer Camp. And it's a place for sex positive professionals. So this is not like an orgy place, right? Orgies might happen. I can't say I haven't seen them happen there, but it's for sex positive professionals who either are already in the sex industry of education, therapy, whatever, and you want to go to a business retreat with other like-minded folks. And it's super fun. It's right outside of Portland. I've been multiple years. I've had some sexy adventures there once upon a time here and there. I will be there this year, actually. And I highly recommend it because we get a lot of folks who ask, how do I become a sex educator? Or I am a sex educator and I want to expand my portfolio. And so if this is you, go to this camp. Is June 11th to 15th, 2022, just outside of Portland, Oregon. To learn more, go to sexgeeksummercamp.com. I will only be there the Saturday and Sunday of the first weekend. So I think it's like 5 or 6 days long. So if you want to come hang with me, I'll be there. Reed was like, get April to come. She's slammed though, by the way. She's real busy.
Busy. Okay,
Yeah, too
let's
busy.
do a sex question. Shout out to Reed, though. We love you.
We love you. And Uberlube is sponsoring it, by the way. We love you, Uberlube. You're the best lube company ever. Okay, sex question. I am a 36-year-old male, and I've never had a girlfriend, never had sex, or even kissed a girl. Nothing. I feel at my age, if I haven't done anything yet, I'm afraid I will be the 40-year-old virgin. I've tried dating sites to try to get a girlfriend with no luck. Please help. So this question, so I've worked with a couple clients of different age ranges, all penis owners, cis males. So, men who were born with penises told you're a man, you're a boy. And I still identify with that to this day of all ages, whether they're early 20s or
Hetero?
30s. Straight people, yeah.
Okay.
And, and they wanted to date girls. One thing I always noticed is they always call them girls. Like even the, a 30-year-old
Even
says
this
girls.
one did.
Yeah. But, but that would make sense if you don't have a lot of experience that the people that and I'm not saying you're looking at 18-year-olds. I'm saying that your brain is still like, oh, girls, but you're 36-year-olds. So I think you're looking for women at this point, and women is, how do we define that? Is it 18 and up? I didn't feel like a woman when I was 18. And so
We'll go the legal route.
Yeah, legal route. So
Legally
women
18
and up. So first of all, I want to just start with sympathy for you and how hard it is to be someone who has spent multiple years not having a lot of access to experience or experiences, and you not telling the full story here. I'm sure there's plenty around that, whether it's a lot of rejection or, past hurt and wounds from childhood stuff to kids picking on you in school. Some of the hurt comes from people that aren't even the people you're trying to flirt with. Like the mean boys, like, oh, you'll never get a girlfriend, all that shit. And so we don't know all those pieces, but just to let you know that you're not alone. And I've also heard really wonderful success stories for people. Actually, the success story I recently heard of is someone who's 40 and was a similar context here. And they started to go venture outside of kind of like, I'm doing air quotes, the normie world. And the normie world, I'm talking about like Tinder and Bumble, which is like where a lot of normal, everyday people, including myself, maybe if I was on a dating app, would go. And there's dating apps and other worlds that are alternative
in the metaverse.
Yeah, like the metaverse. Alternative in the field of sexuality. Just like April and I are, like, we're kind of out there. And you want to go and meet out there people who are like, you're 36 and you've never had sex? Oh my God, tell me more about that.
So are you referring to honing in on what he's into? So if he really loves gaming or he really loves climbing, is that what you're talking about, or what are you speaking to specifically?
I'm speaking to getting outside of whatever you're doing because it's not working. So if it is gaming or climbing or whatever and that shit's not working, I'm actually specifically speaking to going to sex positive communities. We've had, and I don't know the episode number, but we had the folks from Bonobo Network who throw very sex positive sex parties in the Bay Area specifically, but they've created an entire online community for people to meet each other. The episode is about how it's not just about sex. There's plenty of people who go there just to like hang out and get to know each other and mingle and make new friends, and they do that online too. These are people who, when they meet anyone who is different than the standard, they're like celebrating you.
Episode 256.
256. All right. So I suggest going in communities where people will celebrate you for being outside of the norm, where they won't be like, oh, you're 36 and you're a virgin. That's weird. Those are not your people to hang out with right now, like that, or probably ever. Your people that will celebrate you are more open-minded, who are like, you're 36 and you've had sex with 20,000 people or 0 people. You're fucking awesome. As long as it's all consensual, that's great. And let's learn more about each other. So April said, we tell the number again of that
episode 256.
256, or you can go to bonobonetwork.com and you can join that community there, make friends. I don't know where you live, but maybe you can make it to a Bay Area party. Also, there are cuddlists. Yes, I said cuddlists, the professional cuddlers that are a great kind of like intro step into touch and closeness, but it's not erotic. There's no kissing, there's no genitals, but it's closeness and oxytocin, which is a really important thing. And some of them throw cuddle parties in their areas. And then you can meet other people. It's another great way to just start getting kind of like your toes wet in touch and connection. They're all over the United States, probably not in like, I don't know, some tiny town in Illinois.
I have a question though about this. From an expert opinion, do you think you would ever recommend this person hire a sex worker or something, just a vulva owner where maybe he could try out some techniques he's been wondering about and feel safe and there would be no judgment? Or is that not a good recommendation?
I 100% am totally down for people to go and get the experiences that they need in a consensual way that feels good. And sex workers, especially really talented, skilled ones who are like understanding your needs. And this is where you're at. And let me meet you there. And, that's part of the job of, most sex workers. Yes. Fuck yes. I'm totally on board for that. Can we find you those sex workers? We cannot. That is illegal. But we can tell you that
go to Amsterdam.
Or you can go do your own thing here in the United States if that's where you're from. And I think that
actually Nevada, the Bunny Ranch.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, go to Nevada, the Bunny Ranch. Yeah, go see Alice Little if she's still there. Yeah, I think also when you've had that much time away from this, or not away from it, actually never experiencing this thing, you're kind of in this like self-fulfilling prophecy loop.
It's probably going to be a lot of heady shit that happens, and that is hard. That is really rough.
So with a sex worker, it's like, it's just all about you. That actually might be more chill. Might be like, oh, this is way more chill. Or going with the sex positive communities, most people are just like, that's what they're all about. They're about consent, about openness, and really inviting people in as they are. So the other website was cuddlist.com. If you want to go look that up, it might not be in your area, but you might have to drive out 2 hours, but there are resources there. You're not alone, and go kind of dip your toes in and just get more experience.
All right. Are you ready for a bio?
Yes.
Tammy Nelson, PhD, is a licensed psychotherapist, board certified sexologist, and certified sex therapist. She is a TEDx speaker and the host of the Trouble with Sex podcast. Her books include Getting the Sex You Want, The New Monogamy, and her latest, Open Monogamy. She is executive director of the Integrative Sex Therapy Institute and has been a featured expert in New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, Glamour Magazine, Cosmopolitan, Redbook, MSNBC, Men's Health, Women's Day, and has been a source for the Time magazine. To learn more or to buy her books, visit drtammynelson.com.
All right, everyone, it is interview time, and we are here with a repeat guest, Dr. Tammy Nelson. Last time, I think it was on cheating and affairs, and you have a lot of really profound work around that. And this time, we're talking about something called open monogamy. So people were like, what does that mean? We've heard of open relationships. We've heard of non-monogamy. We've heard of polyamory. So we will dive deep into that to have a greater understanding of what open monogamy is. And Tammy also has a book out called Open Monogamy, all about this topic as well. But to start, Tammy, even though you've been on our show before, even though we read your bio, can you please tell our listeners how you got to where you are today in the field of sexuality?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I've been a therapist for like 35 years, and I always followed my intuition and, frankly, the things that gave me pleasure, like what I'm interested in, and where I think the field of psychotherapy was really immature over the past 35 years, just like all of society and our culture. Like, everyone's always afraid to talk about sex, except for you guys. But,
yeah.
but you're such pioneers in this field, and I'm telling you, this is a new world. Like, for years and years, therapists were trained to work with couples and family dynamics, blah, blah, blah. But no one ever told therapists how to talk about sex, or even had classes about sex or trainings about sex. This is like a whole explosion in the field of psychotherapy around, first of all, that it's okay to talk about sex. Secondly, that you should talk about sex. And third, this is how you help people talk about sex. This was not a thing when I was doing my education and training and coming up in the world of being a therapist. And so I was always intrigued by, like, how are you supposed to work with couples or people in relationships and not talk about this? Like, we're in therapy with people not talking about how do you clean the kitchen better? Like, why are we talking about the thing that it's so so dynamically important to romantic relationships. And so I've always been intrigued by the things that are most important to people in their lives, which is basically love and relationships and sex.
Mm-hmm. We all came from it.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not love, but definitely sex.
Well, on some level, or a petri dish, you never know. Could happen.
That's true.
So when we're talking in terms of this book, open monogamy can apply to any gender, all genders, also all orientations. What about relationship dynamics? Who are you speaking to in terms of relationship dynamics?
Well, what I found over the years is that, and particularly since the pandemic, which I think we should talk about too, how relationships have changed, is that there's a lot of people that want a primary or central relationship, but they also want a very flexible or fluid monogamy agreement. So it's not that they don't want to be in a relationship with someone that they're committed to, but they also want to define that commitment in a way that works for them. And they don't want to be boxed into a definition of monogamy that's like, this is not your grandmother's monogamy, right? Like they don't want to be defined by how culture has defined monogamy for the past couple hundred years. But that doesn't mean that they're not committed. You know, monogamy used to be really defined as some kind of morality. And now I think we define monogamy more around integrity and honesty. And that could mean a lot of things to a lot of different people.
I like that, because redefining these terms in a modern day when people have more access to information, to other humans. Before, you had to take a long airplane or ride in a boat to cross the Atlantic. And now we can tap into anyone. We can digitally have sex with people. So it's a new era. And I think it's deserving to reconsider and redefine what monogamy looks like. And I love that integrity piece of that. That's really important.
Yeah, you do. Well, but how in the pandemic though, did something shift though? You're saying that there's like an ideal that changed. Why is that part of the equation or the picture?
Well, there's two things going on. One, I think that people learned over a 2-year period where part of that was in quarantine. You learned that the most important thing in your life was your pod, like the people that you felt safe with, the people that weren't going to get you sick, and that you most likely needed more than just one other person. And a lot of people spent the quarantine alone or with a limited amount of people that were going to support them in their lives. And a lot of people lost their jobs. And what a majority of people, at least in the US, found is that it might be nice to outsource some of your needs, that maybe you're not good at homeschooling your kids. Like maybe you don't want to be the one that has to forage for toilet paper and groceries out in the dangerous world. That maybe it'd be nice to have somebody in your life or in your pod that was good at, going out in the world and making a living or getting the toilet paper, and somebody else that could homeschool the kids, and somebody else that maybe could fill your sexual needs because everyone else is exhausted, and someone else that could be, your supportive best friend. That maybe not one person is going to fill all those needs because we're all exhausted and bored with each other. And wouldn't it be nice to have like that village of people that could really be available to us as resources? And a lot of people have come out of the pandemic. Actually, the rates of affairs have gone way up. Ashley Madison, which is the married but dating website, is up to 75 million members worldwide.
Wow.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Wait, do you think that's because, sorry, I'm not trying to interrupt, but just in terms of the pandemic, is it because people had to slow down and not keep themselves so busy with work and well, also not having their kids at school during the day? Do you think that has something to do with it? Because it was a pause on life, on everything, so they could reflect on what their relationship looked like, or maybe they were single, but either way, is that part of this piece of this monogamy shift?
I think some of it, when you talk about like cheating and outsourcing that sexual relationship, I think some of it is that people are either seekers or nesters. Like if you have a seeking part of your brain, there's a specific neurological part of your brain that's always looking for adventure. It's always looking for something new. It's always looking for variety. And that's just a neurological part that can usually be satisfied by looking for a new restaurant or a movie or a parking place. But when you're home for a year and you've watched everything on Netflix, you're going to start seeking like online for something interesting, even if it's like going on social media and looking for your ex or talking to new people on TikTok or whatever you're into. A lot of those people looked on places like Ashley Madison and started online affairs, not even meeting in person. You know, the emotional affairs or the online sexual affairs went way up. If you're a nester, then you're kind of fine with being in quarantine and making sourdough bread and you know.
I love sourdough bread.
I totally did that. I totally did that.
Yeah, like pizza every day. My mom made a lot of pizza. I'm serious. I'm talking to you, Mom. You made a lot of pizza and bread.
Your mom was probably not a cheater then. She probably very happy.
Yeah. No, she's definitely much more of a nester. So, okay, that brings it to the part about why monogamy is so hard in long-term relationships. I think you've kind of already shared a lot about that. And then the kind of the pandemic really highlighted that. Like, there's the seekers and nesters, but the seekers who are constantly looking for more. And I hear what you're saying. It doesn't mean that all seekers are like always needing multiple partners. They're all like trying to cheat or have an extra girlfriend or boyfriend or friend or lover. But what do you have anything else to say about why monogamy generally can be kind of challenging, not generally, but often, sometimes is challenging in long-term relationships?
Well, first of all, I think we're living longer than ever, right? We used to die. We'd be married to someone for like 15 years and then we would be dead, and that was easy.
So grim. That's true.
That's a good run. You were okay with that. But now, like, you're supposed to live with someone for like 50, 60 years. Like, that's a long 70 years for some people. That's a long run to stay like monogamous and interested and sexually attracted to someone. So this is like, we're coming out of like 2 generations of people that got divorced, that cheated, that didn't know how to make what was traditionally expected of them to be long-term committed till death you part relationship. Nobody really did that. That nuclear family thing didn't really work. I mean, it worked for like a decade when women stayed home and men went to work and you could live in the suburbs and you could afford it. And then it stopped working because we couldn't afford to do that. And women were in the workforce. Now, just like in the sexual revolution, women started that. Women had access to birth control. Women had access to divorce. Women had access to child support. They're the ones that burned their bras and started having sex and started being open to the sexual opportunities. Now, in what I call the monogamy revolution, women are the gatekeepers. Women are deciding, wait, look, I'll decide if we're going to be in an open relationship, in hetero relationships. And if it's going to start or stop or we're going to shut it down, they're usually the ones that make the decision. And because women today don't have to get married, like, look, there's no precedent for this. Like, we used to have to get married to have kids, to have sex, to pass down to have our property passed down to us, to just like make our name like legit. We don't need to do that anymore. We don't need to get married to have life insurance or health insurance. There's no purpose for marriage for us. Like, we don't have to. It's not required. And so when it's not required, it's not mandatory, it's all voluntary. And that means we can do it in any way we want. Like, that's like a whole new thing. And so now we're doing it in the way that we want. We'll decide how it's going to be. And that's like the first time in history.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, marriage, in terms of when we look at it, in terms of Bridgerton and what I'm watching on season 2, it was
not sponsored by Bridgerton.
No, it was a property, what you were speaking to, of the land, passing down land and ownership. And a lot of times people had their side pieces in those days, or they went to sex workers. And a lot of times those could be penis owners that were the Duke of Earl or wherever the fuck they're from. And there is a piece to modern day monogamy in my brain. I think of safety, not financial safety per se, because that's not guaranteed, but sexual safety, because I think, and this is also pure theory, but I would love your opinion on this, Dr. Nelson. What do you think about safety, meaning if there were no STIs in the world and people couldn't transmit diseases sexually, would monogamy even be a thing? Ooh.
Well, your point is very smart, because it's really a time where we're coming out of the extreme time of AIDS, which is really what shut down the sexual revolution. That's what shut down that whole period in the 60s and going into the 70s. was AIDS. And people were like, oh, wow, now we got to shut this shit down because this is going to kill us. And interestingly enough, this whole monogamy revolution was really started by gay men. So the idea that you could be committed emotionally but open sexually is not new. Just because we're saying, okay, this is cool and new, it's not new. Gay men have been doing this for a long time. And the idea that the AIDS epidemic, it's still there, but it's very much under control with medication and preventative meds. And so people do feel more open to expand their monogamy. Now, whether or not that's smart or not on a sexual level, there's still STIs and STDs. There's still potential for danger there. And now we're in a new level of infection because we have COVID. But it is an interesting thing to think about. Like, is that a direct reflection of a new level of preventative and safety around AIDS? I think you're absolutely on the money with that thought.
Well, when you were talking about safety too, I think a lot of people, which can bring us kind of into these new models of monogamy here. We're also curious about the monogamy gap. We're also curious about communication, but it just brings me into the idea of safety, what April's talking about. So a lot of folks, when they're in a monogamous relationship, they think, oh, I'm safe. Not even talking about STIs, by the way, just, oh, I'm safe and secure. Yeah,
right,
secure.
Right.
Yeah, like they're not going to leave me. We're totally secure here. And, you put a ring on, or even outside of marriage, you would talk about all orientations and genders and all relationship dynamics within monogamy, that now all of a sudden all is well. We're all good now until shit hits the fan at some point. If it doesn't always do that. So that's another thing too. Like, you could take STIs out of the equation, but then people, I don't know, I guess I don't know exactly what my question is. I would kind of bring it more into this new models of monogamy here. Like, what does that look like? What are the new ideals or models of monogamy in this 21st century?
Well, we have always searched for this balance between commitment and autonomy. Right. So that particularly as women become much more independent, we're not as dependent on a partner in a hetero relationship financially. Actually, women make more money than men today, and they tend to be more employed in higher positions than men, except the pandemic kind of screwed that up. We kind of had a she-cession, like a recession, where women were forced out of the workplace. But in general, women don't have to be as dependent in many ways. But the idea of safety and security is really about a developmental stage of attachment. So in the beginning of a relationship, when you have new relationship energy, there's an attraction because you long for something or someone, because there's space in between you to long for it. And so I really long for you because I don't have you yet, right? And we have this idealist culture where, I'm not a whole person until I find my other half, and then somehow I'll be complete. And so there's this weird craving to complete ourselves. But then when we get it and we feel that attachment, we can relax because now we have found that part of ourselves. And there's some truth to that. I mean, neurologically, there's a relaxation that happens when you can finally, put on your sweatpants and your yoga pants or whatever and stop wearing makeup and start eating what you want. And
there goes the sex.
Yeah, right? Stop trying. I also blame Jerry Maguire for the "you complete me." You complete me.
Wait, that's Jerry Maguire?
That's Jerry Maguire. When he said that, I feel like I thought that was Mini-Me in Austin Powers. He modeled it after "you complete me" from Jerry Maguire. Amy, the good thing, you're pretty.
That's what she says. The good thing, you're pretty.
Well, no, I'm kidding about the Jerry Maguire thing, although that did fuck with my head when I was little. I was like, I want someone to complete me.
Oh, yeah.
And then you look at all of the Disney movies. Thank you for Prince Charming, and it's going to sweep me off my feet, and I'm going to go in a horse-drawn carriage that's maybe going to turn into a pumpkin. Which that's fine, because I think that idealist dream of someone that will complete you is really, it's great. It's definitely something that is awesome. Love is beautiful. So thank you. I've never bought into it. I'm always like, fuck that. Nothing lasts forever. So I'm sorry out
She's
there.
Like the opposite side of the spectrum.
I am. And I sometimes that's to a fault, where I feel like I'm a very optimistic human, and I want to believe that, but I am the byproduct of multiple divorces on both sides, the byproduct of lying, cheating people, which sucks. But I want to redefine what I believe to be a monogamous relationship. And that doesn't include marriage for me. again because I didn't succeed the first time. So, you know how that goes. We talked about it last episode, Dr. Nelson. This podcast is free to you because of one of our yummy sponsors, Daily Harvest. Let's face it, life feels busier than ever. And if you're anything like me, the last thing I want to do at the end of a busy workday is cook dinner. And to be totally real, takeout is pretty unhealthy and expensive. This is why I stock my freezer with Daily Harvest. They deliver organic, delectable foods like flatbreads, snacks, smoothies, even desserts right to your door. And they have options for any time of the day. You have to try my favorite, the spinach and artichoke flatbread. Or start your morning off right with a mango and papaya smoothie. Trust me, it's so good.
Daily Harvest creates foods that taste great, is packed full of things that are good for you, can help you eat cleaner, and they even support a healthier planet. So all you have to do is eat and enjoy. Plus, everything is always on hand in your freezer, so it's ready for you when you need it. So listen up, y'all. Avoid the takeout temptation and go get Daily Harvest now. Go to dailyharvest.com/shamelesssex to get up to $40 off your first box. That's dailyharvest.com/shamelesssex for up to $40 off your first box. dailyharvest.com/shamelesssex. That's a whole lot of yum. This podcast is free to you because of another one of our amazing sponsors, BetterHelp. If you are a regular Shameless Sex listener, then you've heard us say how much we believe most people could benefit from having the support of a therapist to help with your sex and relationship issues. But finding that support is not always easy. And that's why we are huge fans of BetterHelp. BetterHelp is like that little birdie you wish that lived on your shoulder, who you could check in with when life's challenges arise. When you sign up with BetterHelp, they assess your needs and match you with a licensed therapist to connect within a safe, confidential online environment, all under 48 hours.
Whether you are just looking for timely responses for support or looking to schedule with someone weekly via video or phone sessions, BetterHelp has you covered with convenience and ease. And they work with people all across the globe. BetterHelp is affordable, and for a beloved Shameless Sex family, you also get 10% off your first month by visiting our sponsor at betterhelp.com/shamelesssex. Join over 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health by going to BetterHelp. That's betterhelp.com/shamelesssex. All right, back to the show. So moving on with communication, because I feel with everything, like communication and having the proper skills, which it always comes back to communication. But when you're talking about this open monogamy piece, you're going to have to be really good at communicating your needs and also being a good listener, which is a big part of communication, everyone. 80-20, 80-20. So when it comes to repair, why is communication so important in relationships? And I love this question. Well,
first of all, just to go back to the Disney thing for a second, you do know that in every Disney movie, the mother always dies in the first 5 minutes.
Oh, geez.
It's true.
Every Disney movie. But we know that Disney has a mother issue.
Oh my God, Bambi's mom dies. Oh my God, you're right.
Every
Cinderella
movie.
didn't have a mom. She had a stepmother.
Yeah.
That's the
Snow
mother.
White, she was sleeping.
Wow, I didn't even realize that. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Sorry.
Shattered all the dreams. There's no Santa?
This is a spoiler alert for anyone who has never watched a Disney movie. We're sorry.
And all the women are like, except for the newer Disney movies, which are a little more woke, like a lot of the women are asleep until a man comes and wakes them up. And the whole idea of that female sexuality has to be awoken by a man, that it's not already existing, that we don't already exist until we're in a relationship. So the idea of being, awoken or awake when you're in relationship implies that we are already not sexual. And so communication, I think when you're talking about communicating in a relationship, in a sexual relationship, is first being aware of your own needs. Who am I as a sexual person? What do I need in a relationship? And how can I define monogamy for myself? Like there is a whole continuum of monogamy. So what I first of all mean by open monogamy is being open with each other about what you want and what you need. And that continuum can be, look, I just want to share my fantasies about other people with you. We don't ever have to take anything into action, but let's talk about it. That could be hot. Or I just want to know that if we're looking at porn, that's not cheating. Or I want to know that I can go out with my ex and go out to lunch and flirt a little, but do we have to tell each other about that every time? Like there's a whole continuum there of monogamy, all the way over to the far side, which could be polyamory or, relationship anarchy, where there is no structure of who's more primary than anybody else. But there's a wide range of discussion that can happen there. And so one thing I recommend is having a what if conversation. So say you heard this podcast, I heard Shameless Sex, it was so interesting. And I'm wondering, what if we had some kind of open monogamy? What would that be like? Like, what do you imagine? What's your fantasy? Doesn't mean we have to do anything. Let's just have like a what if potential, possible, problematic, open conversation about what that might look like.
Which is a hard first step because people are like, oh no, Pandora's box. And communication is really challenging for a lot of folks. Hence why we have a whole podcast here that is often about communication. I know you have a podcast too, and a lot of offerings are teaching people how to have these difficult conversations. So did we cover the monogamy gap though? I want to make sure that we talked about that because we had that in our notes. I was so curious what that was. And then I would love to still go into some steps for these ways to open up or not open up, but make these agreements. But what is the monogamy gap?
So the monogamy gap is, I think it's common in all relationships, that you have a different expectation implicitly or explicitly of what monogamy is going to look like. So you might think, somebody walks in on their partner masturbating to pornography and they think, oh my God, you're cheating on me. And the other person thinks, I've been doing this since I was 12. This has nothing to do with you. And that's not breaking our monogamy agreement. So that's an implicit assumption that needs to be explicit, needs to be talked about. And that's a gap between what you think of as monogamy and what I think of as monogamy. And those are the things that can lead to betrayal and discomfort and distress if you don't, like you said, communicate about it and talk about it. And all people everywhere have these implicit assumptions about what monogamy is supposed to be. And if you don't talk about those things, you might think, oh yeah, it just means we don't sleep with other people. But what about if you send pictures of yourself on Instagram? What about if you like someone's TikTok video? Like, people get upset about those things. We have to talk about them.
Or just, having a conversation with someone out in public and there's some attraction there and the conversation is only 5 minutes, but it might feel flirtatious. Do we just cross boundaries? And, or whereas other people like flirting, that's part of monogamy. That's like natural behavior for me and my partner and out in the world, but everyone has different standards.
Exactly. Yeah. And you can cheat even if you're in an open relationship. I have people that have like 6 or 7 different partners, but if they go out to coffee with somebody else and they don't tell everybody, then everyone feels like they were cheated on. So you have to be really clear on what your monogamy agreement is and be open about it.
And those conversations can be difficult, even if you're a skilled communicator, because I know from my own point of view, if someone approached me, I would go immediately, I would try to work through it, but I'd go immediately to what's wrong with me? Am I not good enough? And so the worthiness piece would come up and I would spiral for a while. And then I'd be like, okay, wait, no. Okay, let's revisit this. So it is important. That's where the listening piece comes in and understanding the integrity part of going to in the partnership and making sure that everyone's on the same page. So I do like that advice of communication, but I will say that I know how hard it is. And if you're like me, we're together. Okay. So don't worry. Nothing's wrong with you. Okay, time for a quick break. This podcast is free to you because of our amazing sponsors like Uberlube. Uberlube is a luxurious silicone lubricant that can enhance your sex and intimacy. Uberlube's unique formula is velvety, long-lasting, with no flavor or scent, and it feels absolutely incredible on the body. There are thousands of doctors recommending Uberlube to their patients because it's less likely to throw off your pH than most other lubes. So whether you want to make your hot sex even hotter, or you want to prevent dryness, take our advice and check out our favorite go-to Uberlube.
Uberlube isn't just for sex. I use it for massage, to tame my frizzy hair, to prevent chafing, even for oral sex sessions. I love how it comes in a beautiful bottle with a pump top for easy access, appearing more like a cosmetic product so you can leave it on your nightstand shamelessly. Uberlube is without a doubt my favorite lube, and countless listeners agree, often stating, we never knew lube could be this good. To learn why why we think it's the best lube on the planet, check out uberlube.com and use code shamelesssex for 10% off and free shipping. Again, that's uberlube.com. Use code shamelesssex for 10% off and free shipping. This podcast was also made possible by OMGYes.com. OMGYes combines scientific research of real vulva owners so you can learn shame-free techniques on how to pleasure the pussy. OMGYes studied 20,000 plus people of all ages and turned the research into animated modules, short videos, and beautiful infographics that are tasteful and easy to understand. Whether you want to learn about external pleasure, internal stimulation, or techniques with toys, OMGYes can help you master vulva pleasure. Let me tell you, I've been recommending OMGYes to my clients for years, and it's been changing their lives because knowledge really can activate your pleasure power.
OMGYes is for anyone who cares about vulva pleasure and wants to take it to the next level. OMGYes can help you become a sexual strategist by equipping you with the tools you need to unlock your pleasure potential. Plus, your OMGYes purchase helps fund more pleasure research. OMG, that's great. Only pay once, and these techniques are yours forever. That's right, this is not a subscription service, and you don't need to download a thing. So go to omgs.com/shameless to get 10% off when you purchase any OMGYes season. Again, go to omgs.com/shameless to get 10% off right now. Time to pursue your pleasure. And now back to the show. So Amy mentioned the steps. You mentioned the kind of a really good one. Can you share a few more to honor the agreements in the relationship? And what does this entail? That was a roundabout question, but I think you get me.
Yeah, when they're like co-creating.
Thank you.
Boy, I was thinking of like writing, almost like, I don't know if you use this, I read this from you. Actually, I remember saying this with a partner years ago. That relationship didn't go well. You know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. But we were like redoing the contract of our relationship. And that involved not only needs, but also relational dynamics and monogamy was a part of that. So I'm just like dovetailing what April said, kind of like the relational contract and what that looks like, co-creating together.
Yeah. In my book, Open Monogamy, I have like a lot of questions that you can ask each other to create your new monogamy agreement. And then I also have separately from that, I have a handout, which I'll give your listeners. It's like 40 questions to start your new monogamy agreement. And I have to agree with you. It's not easy. I did it with my husband and with my current husband. And we got to like number 6 and we got in a big argument. I wrote.
Okay. You wrote it. Fuck, we're doomed. Just kidding.
And I think number 6 was like about jealousy, like how you handle jealousy. And he was like, "Oh, you're much more jealous than I am." And I'm like, "No, you're much more jealous than I am." And it turned into like an all-night argument. And I'm like, if we can't get past 6, how are other people going to get past this? So I had to like rewrite some of it. But the reality is, getting through those kind of questions of like, is it okay to flirt with a friend in front of each other? Like, how do we tell each other if that's bothering us? Or all the way to the end of the spectrum to, if we're going to sleep with other people, what are the boundaries there? Like, I don't believe in rules. First of all, rules makes it sound like I'm got to be your mother and then I got to follow up to like punish you if you break the rules. I'm not interested in that. But I am interested in my own boundaries, which are for me. I can't impose my boundaries on someone else. I can't tell you what your boundaries are, but I can tell you what my boundaries are. And I can also tell you what my red line boundary is, like what I will not cross. Like, there's no way we're bringing home a friend to sleep in my bed, or there's no way I'm telling my kids, or whatever your red line is, you can't sleep with someone without a condom. Those things I think are important to share as part of your new monogamy agreement. And maybe you start there, and maybe you start with your own boundaries. Like, this is what I'm thinking. But remember, boundaries are flexible and you don't project them onto your partner.
Yes. And so are you recommending then, so say people are new-ish to this of recreating their monogamy. They've just been with each other and they want to open it up to some degree. And we're going to call this some degree of new monogamy. Are you recommending also like baby steps? And we may have talked about this the last time we were with you, but like kind of tiptoeing, not like, let's just go right into the gangbang. Is it like, let's just play with flirting a little bit if they're brand new to this space?
Well, I'm not going to judge anyone's fantasies. If you want to start with a gangbang, like you do, that's your fantasy. That's fine. That's fine. But I would not recommend like bringing up names of people to have a gangbang with. Like, I would
April,
not say,
Amy,
yeah,
Tammy.
I really want to bring home April and Amy and my neighbor Sue. Like, that's my biggest fantasy. Don't start there. If you want to start with, my fantasy is to like have sex with 3 women, I would say that, but with the understanding of there's a difference between your fantasy and what you're curious about and taking things into action. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to do it, but you can start by talking about the things that you're curious about or you have fantasies about without bringing up people's names, without getting too specific, and without the expectation that your partner has to do it. Because this is never going to work if you coerce or manipulate your partner. It has to be 100% joyful, consensual. Both people are into it.
That's where the integrity piece comes in again. Walking that integrity line. So, okay. Question about what if, which we touched on a little bit, but what if one partner wants excitement, variety, adventure, and the other one's like, no, I just want missionary and occasional doggy style. And they're a bit more resistant to that. How do folks navigate this? And I know you talked about the monogamy gap, which does play a piece to this, but that can be scary, right? If they're not aligned.
Yeah. And I think that there's a desire gap too. Like, I might be into it more often than you, or you might be into something kinkier than me. And what I ask couples to do is to talk about, well, what is the underlying desire there? Like, if you're into something that's like, I really want to have a kinkier sex, and I want them to talk about, like, what does that mean for you? Like, you want to be more in control, more dominant because you want to feel more in charge? Or what I hear a lot from women is, I'm so in charge of everything, of my family, of the house, of my job, my business, the kids. The one place I don't want to be in charge is in bed. So can I just be a pillow princess? You can tie me up and let's do that.
Sounds fun.
Right. So that's different than I want to be kinky. I want to do something different. Like, if the other person's not really into tying the other person up, that freaks them out. Well, maybe there's other things you could do to help that person feel submissive and turned on. Like, it doesn't have to match the fantasy exactly, but maybe you can help that person to have that same feeling.
Yeah. And then speaking on the other side, there's the adventurous person who's asking, like, here's what and when I say kinky, I mean, I want to be tied up in a pillow princess because I'm a doer in the everyday world. But then for the resistant person, I imagine there's a conversation with them, like, what does the resistance bring up for you? What fears come up? Like April was talking about worthiness there. Even if it's just like, I would like to watch more porn with you, and there's resistance, like, no. I personally would be curious about what that no is. Not like I'm going to coerce you against that no, but what about that is a no for you? Does it bring up some old wounding? Do you have a bad experience with porn, or do you think porn is just really anti-women? Or I don't know, maybe if you have something to add to that piece about the resistant partner.
Oh, yeah, I think you're right on target there. I think, and particularly talking about porn, that's a whole different thing. Like, it might be that you want to look at feminist approved porn, or you don't like the idea of watching porn because your kids are home, or you don't want it on your computer, or there could be a lot of reasons that people don't want to engage in pornography, or the only pornography they've seen has been really exploitational in a certain way that really turns them off. Maybe the idea is that it's not a turn on. Letting them pick what kind they want or what they want to look at could be, a way to give the other person a feeling of empowerment. The idea is for both people to share their fantasies and what they desire, to give them both a feeling of power and control. If someone's resistant, it may not be, I hear this a lot in open monogamy conversations. When someone says, I want to open the relationship, and the other person's like, no way, I'm doing that. When you actually ask them, what are you resistant to? They have a fantasy that the person's saying, oh, I want to open the relationship and I want to have, all these polyamorous partners, or I want to go to sex clubs, or I want to, go to an island where we just have sex for a week. And the other person's thinking, no, I just wanted to look at porn.
Yeah.
Like,
that's simple. Yeah.
Simple. Like, I'm a simple person. So you really have to get to the bottom of what people are actually imagining, because most of the time, again, there's a gap.
Well, and I was thinking of April, you were in the room, we were talking about Dan Savage's term monogamish. Mm-hmm. And so just to kind of like ask one more question about because what I'm seeing is this big spectrum. When you're talking about open monogamy, you're including, I love using this example because it pisses April off. It's just April and I were in a marriage and we just want to have sex with each other. That is part of open monogamy, but we're bringing the authenticity, the integrity, and more communication, and kind of like maybe elaborating more on fantasies, desires, and things. But it might just be us having sex with each other forever and ever. To everything to radical anarchy, polyamory, it's all the things, and monogamish, which Dan Savage created to include. It's more so like people who are monogamous most of the time, but I'm not going to probably say this perfectly. Sorry, Dan, if you want to come on our show to clarify, we welcome you. We love you. But it's people who are mostly monogamous, and then they do have these like open experiences or tendencies to open in certain ways. So just your open monogamy spectrum includes all of these pieces, correct?
Yeah, because I think, what he's really talking about is kind of swinging behavior, but not necessarily even together. So that's even part of the continuum. Like some people are like, don't ask, don't tell. Like, let's just do it separately, autonomously, or independent from each other, or just when we're on vacation, or do what you want on Tuesdays, but don't tell me. Everybody has a different definition. The monogamish thing came from gay men who had an emotional monogamy, but sexually were much more fluid. And so the monogamy thing was like, are we monogamous? Kind of. Open monogamy is more, really encompasses that, as well as, like you said, people who are just having sex with each other, but maybe walking through a sex party and just looking at other people, but they never touch another person. There's many iterations of this, but the idea is it's not so rigid and traditional that you can assume that just because somebody says, oh yeah, we're married or in a committed partnership, that means that they are defined by the old rules of, like I said, your grandmother's monogamy, where it may not have been monogamous. Keep in mind that cheating is a form of non-monogamy. It's just not open. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So this includes everything on that spectrum in a way that's flexible, fluid, and transparent. So it negates the need to have an affair or to lie and be dishonest.
So there's a lot of moving parts to this, which is why I think your book would be a smart investment for people out there, in whether you're in, and as we said in the beginning, no matter your gender, no matter your orientation, this can apply to you. And it will eventually apply to you at some point, I'm sure. So how can people find you? How can they buy this book? And if they want to work with you, how can all that happen?
Well, you can go to openmonogamy.com to find the book, or my website, drtammynelson.com, or anywhere books are sold, anywhere you buy books. And I'm happy to send your listeners a free ebook. I can send them that 40 questions for your new monogamy, which I did change question 6. So I think they'll be.
They're like, please change to question 6. Yeah, we could put that in the show notes if that's an easy thing, like a link that they can click on.
Sure. I'm happy.
Cool. Awesome.
And do you have any social handles?
Oh, I have a new TikTok channel, which I don't know what it is, but I'll send it to you for your show notes.
Okay, cool.
And
I
know I'm trying. I'm never going to be a dancing, rapping TikTok therapist, though. I'm just warning you. But I do have 5 tips on how to open your monogamy. I just put 5 videos up. And I have an Instagram, which is Dr. DOCTOR_Nelson. And I have a Twitter, and I have Facebook, and I'll send you all those links.
Okay.
Are you part of the metaverse? Is that what's called?
Yes.
April just taught me about that.
I know. I'm keeping Amy hip over here. All right. Well, you're always incredible. Every show that you've been on, I learned something. I take away new information, and we just love you, and your podcast as well. Can you tell folks about that one?
Yes, please go to The Trouble with Sex, which is my podcast. And I would love to have you guys on as guests, because I think you guys are incredible. You are pioneers in this field, and you are breaking through all kinds of boundaries and starting new conversations about sex. You're really doing everybody a favor.
Thanks. Aww. Yeah, we would love that. It's our favorite conversation. We'll totally come on your show.
Hell yeah. Well, go check out that podcast as well. I know I'm going to, and listen, because Amy and I will be on it soon. Well, Dr. Nelson, we love you. As I said before, we also love you, the person that's listening right now to Amy and I and Dr. Tammy's voices. So thank you for being part of the Shameless Sex Revolution. Just do me a little favor, as they say some places. Go to iTunes, rate us, give us 5 stars. We read every single review, and all this does is help people find our work and Dr. Tammy Nelson's work, and it helps them improve their sex lives, their humanity, their pleasure, all of it. So go do that. Check it out. Take a minute. You can just do some emojis. We don't mind. All right, y'all. You know how it goes. We'll see you next Tuesday for another episode of Shameless Sex. Ciao for now.
Want to learn more? Go to shamelesssex.com. And for 15% off of some of our favorite sex toys, use coupon code SHAMELESSSEX at purepleasureshop.com.